how many people? Great. Welcome to today's, what is today? The 27th of April, 2021. Welcome to the Senate Democratic Caucus. I'm Allison Clarkson, and we are going to address a bunch of interesting subjects today and bills that are coming up this week and next on the floor. So we're going to start with our economic development bill with Senator Sirotkin, and this is our Omnibus Economic Development Bill. I know a number of you have been hearing about aspects of it, and so Michael, would you be kind enough to introduce us to this bill?
Sure, thank you. So H-159 is an unusual bill in some respects. We see an Omnibus Economic Development Bill coming from the House or the Senate in previous years, but this one is unusual in that I believe it's the only bill the House sent us this year in terms of House Commerce, anyhow. It has 10 different parts to it, and it's further unusual in that in the House, with these 10 parts, a lot of them have appropriations associated with them, and they put the appropriations in the bill. As you know, in the Senate, we strip appropriations from our substantive provisions, but they kept in, I think, 9 out of the 10 sections, they kept an appropriation in the bill and put some meat on the bone as to what the money was being appropriated for in the 9 sections. In one exception, which had to do with workforce development, which was by far the biggest appropriation, they took care of the appropriation in the appropriations bill, but they left the wording in here giving a lot of direction and accompanying money that's in the appropriations bill to the Vermont State College system. So I'll walk you through this bill, and then there are a couple of new issues that have surfaced since they sent us this bill that deals with ARPA funding and economic development. The first section deals with tourism and marketing, and the House had wanted to put $2.5 million, and this might be a joint effort with the chair of Senate Appropriations and myself, because I'm not 100% sure of all the details of what remains in the budget, but we made recommendations to the Appropriations Committee as to what the dollars associated with H-159 should be. So Section 1 deals with tourism and marketing. The House wanted $2.5 million directly for out-of-state marketing, mostly ads around the country. We decided to pare that back a little bit. The governor's original request was $2 million. We pared it back to $2 million, and we suggested it be divided up 1.25 to out-of-state marketing and $750,000 to consumer stimulus efforts, which was done in the over the summer by the governor, where they gave out 60 $10,000 grants to individual chambers of commerce and the like to start mini programs in their towns and regions to get people back shopping and eating and things like that, with discount cards and other things. So we reduced the funding a little bit, and we also divided it up between out-of-state marketing and consumer stimulus, which puts money directly in Vermonters' pockets. I should back up and say a lot of the changes we made to money here was as a result of working with the Senate Appropriations Committee. We had a challenge of the House, between what the House had passed in their bill and what the governor had proposed in his new ARPA spending. That was total of $92 million, and we were asked to bring that down to $40 million. So we had to do a more modest program here. The second thing in the bill, the second section, deals with technology-based economic development. This was in part putting more money into UVM's hands to do science data collection and research, and also to match funds from the federal program that we have been lagging in terms of getting our businesses to apply for. The major difference here is again, we had to do some paring back. Instead of giving UVM $3 million, we gave them $1 million, and we gave 800,000 of their money that they had in the House had appropriated to UVM. We gave it directly to ACCD to provide the matching grants. We haven't finalized that decision yet, but I think that's where our committee is going to come down. I think UVM has sort of a conflict of interest. If they had that $800,000 in grants to give to technology initiatives, they would probably, in large part, give it to themselves as opposed to other universities and research institutes. I think we learned that this morning. The third section deals with post-secondary career and technical education, CTE. This is a fairly minor section. We had asked the Department of Labor to do a report back to us. Because of COVID, they didn't do that. They have now said they can't do it, and they want to hire a consultant for $75,000, but it's within a fund that they already have control over. So we haven't decided whether we'll do that yet, but it didn't impact the appropriations bill, which we had to make decisions on this week. Again, a minor section. Section 5 is an interesting one. There's about 10 people that work for the Northern Border Regional Commission that covers New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire, maybe Maine, and they want to, their employees want to have access to our employment plan for payroll and health insurance. The administration has no problem with that. We thought nobody had a problem with it, but the VSEA is now raising issues with that. So we're going to be hearing from them tomorrow. Section 6 is probably the highlight of the House's proposal. It deals with something you may have heard called the Better Places program. We had to pare that back significantly. The House had put in $5 million. It's for encouraging community-based projects like pocket parks, cultural events, and its creative part of this is that it relies a lot upon crowdsourced fundings as matching to any state monies that's put in. We're going to talk about how this can be structured tomorrow, but we did reduce the amount from 5 million to 1 million. It's a new program. It deals with a lot of cultural kinds of issues, and we thought we should start off a little slower. And again, we had to come up with significant savings from what the House had proposed. I'm hoping that we can do this and a lot of this stuff within existing programs somehow, as it seems like we always are starting new programs with new dedicated funds. And I'm not sure why we can't give some of this money to existing programs and have some provisions in those existing programs that allow set-asides for these purposes, as opposed to starting a new fund and a new program in state government. Section 8 deals with establishing a business sort of representative or lobbyist to encourage Canadian investment in Vermont. This would be a $300,000 investment over the next 2 years to generate increased employment, increase the range of job opportunities for Vermonters, and target Canada and Quebec most specifically as an area that's fertile for getting a good return on our investment. We supported that. We also, let's see, the last section of the bill deals with workforce development. No, not the last section. There are a couple more. Workforce development I mentioned before. This is, I think, $20 million. Senator Senator Kitchell, I don't know if it's 20 million or 60 million, depending on how you look at it, putting into the Vermont State Colleges for workforce investment initiatives and getting free courses and other apprenticeship programs up and running at the Vermont State College system. There's no money in this bill for that, but there is a bunch of language that we are going to look at and refine. Section 11 deals with $2 million for micro businesses. This is sort of recovery grants for small, very small businesses, mostly for low income folks going through the Office of Economic Opportunity and the CAPS. We cut this to $1.5 million because there was 500,000 already in H315 for the same purpose. Section 12 deals with promoting a plan to improve the business climate and opportunities for the BIPOC community. The House had put $100,000 for a consultant to come back with a report how to best approach this. We increased that to $150,000 to make sure there was enough money to get this off on the right foot. Section 13 deals with Entrepreneur Seed Capital Fund. We had put $5 million into this about a decade ago. It's running out of money. It's basically to angel fund investment into technological firms that hopefully can hit it big. Dealer.com may be an example of that. And the administration was asking for $900,000 to start that fund up again. It's supposed to be paid back over time once these high-risk businesses are successful. We had recommended this come out of ARPA funds. I'm not sure that was allowed. I'm not sure what the Appropriations Committee did. We were not suggesting that it be funded if we couldn't do it through ARPA funds. But I don't know exactly what the end of that is. And that is all that's in the Omnibus Economic Development Bill. We are also dealing tomorrow with the two items that the governor has proposed in his ARPA funding, the economic recovery grants and the capital, the $90 million for capital regional projects, trying to define those projects in greater detail. Because we had a tall task in terms of where we can get the savings that the Appropriations Committee wanted us to achieve. These two items, which one for recovery grants is 50 million and the capital regional developments are 90 million. So as Willie Sutton says, that's where the money was, and that's where we had to save the $50 million from. So we had suggested $30 million for recovery grants and $11 million in the first year for the regional capital programs. I talked very fast. I know I'm not the only one on the agenda, but there's a lot here.
I see some questions. And so we have time for some questions. I see Senator Campion.
Thanks, Senator Clarkson. Thanks, Senator Sorokin. So it sounded like there might be some things related to education policy in what you just went over. I may be wrong. I know you said that you went quickly, but if you could maybe ask your alleged counsel to flag anything that you think warrants a review by our folks. You know, I hate, I just don't want to have some big surprise, understandably, on the floor, but that things are being worked on in a certain way. So that would be my request.
No problem on that. There is a big section in here on workforce development, and it overlaps with education in the fact that most of that proposal is going to be done through the state college system.
Great. So, I mean, we would just appreciate, perhaps this afternoon or more likely tomorrow afternoon, a little bit of a walkthrough. That would be great. Thank you.
No
Great,
problem.
thanks. I see Senator Senator McCormick. You're muted.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Do we have anything in here? I don't think you mentioned anything to this effect. Do we have anything in here to compensate landlords for a year's worth of rental income being lost?
This was more economic development. They have not sent us any kind of housing bill. We sent them a couple of housing bills. In terms of money for landlords, there's a ton of it in the federal government's ARPA monies and the Consolidated Act from December. More money than we probably could ever spend in reimbursing tenants for any rent they pay, back rent they may owe, even some future rents. Financially, quite frankly, Senator McCormick, it would be a good time to be a landlord. Financially, I know there are problems with tenants, unique tenants, and conflicts, but in terms of money, I've never seen so much money available for rents.
Thank you.
Well,
Any
I don't
other
want to take
questions for
your time. I'm going to need some coaching on what I'm going to do with this fairly long line of landlords who are asking me why they haven't been compensated for over a year without.
Well, there could be a timing problem. I know the first batch of money, which I think we put $110 million in, just got off the ground like last
I was
week.
not aware of that. Heading is that little dead end drive as you're going up the Hospital Hill on the left.
Mark, you're not muted.
So it could be,
Yeah.
Senator McCormick, it could be a timing. It could be a timing issue. The
Okay.
new programs are
Yeah.
more limited than the previous one.
I had no idea that you had
Senator
brown
McDonald,
water. My
Senator McDonald,
Senator
you're
a
not
bad
muted.
day. You got brown water. My church burned down this morning. So,
I think he's giving directions to how to get landlords to get
how long
money.
has it been brown?
Maybe you could mute him.
Senator
Yeah.
McCormick, Asha, can you mute Senator McDonald, please?
Give
So-
him the look.
Yeah, he's not, I can't give him the look. So, did we finish on the timing issue with landlords?
I was just going to say the other thing is that the program going forward is a little bit more restricted and it's more for middle low income people, whereas the previous one really didn't have a means test on it. And that went through, I think, December or maybe even a little bit longer in terms of covering the rents that people owed.
Right. Senator Hardy. Oh, sorry, Senator Hardy and then Senator Kitchell.
Okay, thank you, Madam Majority Leader. I'm just to Senator McCormick's question. If you go to the Vermont State Housing Authority website, there's a huge banner about that program and lots of information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Question for Senator Sorokin. You mentioned, I know you're paring back the House's proposal of whatever their new program was called, but I'm wondering, is there still funding directed or earmarked or whatever the word is specifically for arts and cultural organizations? Those organizations are in lots of our small towns and have taken a huge hit this year.
My understanding is there's money in the budget for the Arts Council. And when we get into putting more meat on the bone in terms of the recovery grants, we'll be cognizant of that they need to be included.
And
Okay.
I would just remind us that they have the shuttered venues grants, which are huge. I think it's 28.6 billion. That is a direct application for anybody who has ticketed admission.
Okay,
The
great.
shuttered venues is going to be very helpful for a lot of them. And I know there's money in the budget. So maybe Senator Kitchell wants to address that.
Okay, before she goes, can I just ask one quick question? Because she
Yeah.
might be able to address this too, which is Senator Sorokin mentioned that you were making changes in the economic development or business grants, and just wondered, I didn't quite catch everything, and maybe we didn't have details yet, but wondered what was going on with that as well.
We don't have details yet, or that's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday. The only thing we've done so far is come up with a number based upon the guidelines that we were given that we could afford in this year. But how we prioritize those grants is totally a work in progress.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
And Senator Hardy, it's shuttered venues, I apologize, is 16 billion. And the restaurant revitalization fund is 28.6. And those are direct applications to the feds. Senator Kitchell, and then we'll move to Senator Hooker.
I don't want to get into all the details of the budget, but the budget reflects the recommended appropriation that we received from economic development. So, but I just want to clarify, when we were building the appropriations committee, there's reference back to what the governor recommended. And I simply want to say that is what the governor proposed, to use the ARPA funding, but there were very significant areas that were not included in the plan. So we cannot simply say, well, that's what the governor proposed, therefore that becomes the recommended funding. And I'll give you an example. We're talking about small business in terms of people, landlords who might have evictions that are subject to a moratorium. There was nothing in there for the startups of our courts. Whether we're talking about families who are awaiting child support, whether we're talking about eviction moratorium or whatever, or criminal cases. So that is an area where we're putting funding in that was not included in the governor's recommend. The other areas in workforce investment, which is about our budget is going to have $23 million. And in terms of the education, that really is a lot of higher ed, and the House budget was 20.5 million. That had some double counting because of what we put in 315. So I just want to caution that there is money that we put out in 315, but we did have to make some adjustments. So as Senator Sorokin said, the amount that we were working with was had to be adjusted from what was recommended. So we have taken care of things like getting the final money for the dental therapy program at VTC. And we have gone in and we've put in additional money for apprenticeships, which is not included. So you have to look at it in totality, because there is funding that did not have to be accommodated. We did put in the additional match so that we could draw down the full, so the Arts Council could draw down the full amount of available federal funding. That match was increased, plus I believe it was a 1.8 million for that digital presence and for other grants and technical assistance. So this bill is really important to put the language and the parameters around the money that's in the budget. I just want to make it clear. And that's why, as Senator Sorokin said, they're still working on the business grants, because there's been a lot of questions about what should be the criteria. And that has been a topic of ongoing conversation, and sometimes rather less than complimentary emails in terms of how that might have worked. So I'm just cautioning that this is one piece of a larger discussion around what are those needs that have to be balanced out. And so we are putting in quite a bit of money for workforce investment that was not in the governor. So the minute you start saying that's a need and we've got to address it, it means that you have to go in and do some adjustments. So I just am just saying, as a legislature, we're going to have to balance it out. The governor has said he wants his own money. He wants his own bill, which is not going to happen. We're doing a separate section. And he is putting forth what he believes should be the use, which is tangible infrastructure. So I'm just raising that as, please take what this bill is doing as just part of a much larger context of appropriations.
Right. Thank you very much, Senator Kitchell. And I think given our time, we're going to shift, but just to tack on to what Senator Kitchell just said, I know many of you've gotten emails from the lodging and hospitality industry. Those guidelines and that eligibility is what we are discussing this week in Senate Economic Development. So Senator Hooker, I think you have Dr. Dinosaur-like.
Thank you.
We're going to shift to healthcare, which is, of course, economic development.
And this should be a much simpler bill than the ones we've been talking about. This is H430, and what it does is establish a Dr. Dinosaur-like coverage for children and pregnant individuals who are not eligible for Dr. Dinosaur program because of their immigration status. So these are undocumented people who are living in the state, and it would provide similar coverage to Dr. Dinosaur, but it would be paid for by the state rather than the feds. And it uses $1.4 million to cover the setup for this program this year. And that would allow for providers to be reimbursed or to get grants. It would allow for organizations that work with members of Vermont's undocumented immigrant community to connect people with providers, and it would implement the technological and operational processes necessary for the Department of Vermont Health Access to administer the coverage. So after that, the money would come from the Agency of Human Services, and they would have to present their budget for the 2023 fiscal year. So it would provide coverage for pregnant women and children under 19 who are income eligible, but whose immigration status does not allow them to get coverage under Dr. Dinosaur. And I believe that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Senator Hooker? Sorry, I don't think I see anybody. So if somebody has a question, give it a shout out.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I think then we'll go to Senator Hardy for the health disparities bill.
Thank you, Senator Clarkson. So this bill is H210, and it's a bill addressing disparities and promoting equity in the healthcare system. It's kind of a lengthy bill, but the first half of the bill are legislative findings, intent, and purpose that basically make the case for why doing this work is really important, and lays out a lot of statistics about the health disparities between for people of color of varying racial and ethnic categories, also LGBTQ Vermonters, and also Vermonters with disabilities. So there's a lot of statistics at the beginning and a lot of legislative intent and purpose about why we need to address these disparities and this inequity, and also why it's important to collect better data about these disparities. And then the bill basically sets up a two-part process for creating an Office of Health Equity in our Department of Health. The original bill created the office immediately, but the Department of Health right now is kind of swamped with COVID-related work, and they asked for a little bit more time. So the bill creates a commission, a very diverse commission, a large commission, 30 members that represent public health officials, Vermonters of color from various ethnic and racial groups around the state, Also Vermonters with Disabilities and Vermonters, LGBTQ Vermonters, and organizations and groups that represent those varying groups. So this commission would work with our Director of Racial Equity to make recommendations about how to establish the Office of Health Equity in the Department of Health, what the duties and oversight of that office should be, when it should be started, how it should be staffed, and et cetera, making those kinds of recommendations. They would also work on making recommendations about data collection and training for health professionals. And again, the Director of Racial Equity would oversee this work temporarily. And then once the office is created, she would step out of that role and it would not be part of her duties. The goal is to create the office by January 1st, 2023, and to have it up and running so she would have temporary oversight. But the commission would then continue to advise the office and advise the department about health disparities and inequities. And also there are provisions for advising the legislature on these issues and also funding issues regarding those areas. That's the basics of the bill. I'm happy to answer any specific questions related to it.
Great, thank you. Any questions on the health disparities bill?
And we'll just add one more thing. There was funding for starting the data part of this bill in H315, which I think is Act 9 now. So we've already gotten started on the data stuff through the Green Mountain Care Board and the Department of Health. And then there's funding that the House included in H439 in the big bill for this commission and the transition work. So.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much. I think if there are no questions, then we will move on to Senator White. And we will, because I think the Montpelier Charter is going to be up on the floor and fairly soon.
Yeah, I have nothing more to add unless somebody has questions that have come up since we last talked about this. We are planning on voting it out today. And so it should be on the floor in a couple days.
Great.
But if somebody has questions, otherwise I have really nothing to
No.
add.
It's been well covered. I just curious. Okay, great. Terrific. Does anybody have anything that we have about 10 minutes left? Becca, Senator Ballant, do you have anything you want to address? And also anybody else who has something that Senator Ballant, you have anything you'd like to add?
The only thing I want to add is chairs have been great about getting to my office the list of the bills that they're still planning to move out of committees this week. So just Carolyn and I are just trying to direct traffic as best we can. So thank you to all the folks who did get those bill numbers to us. Others who haven't done that yet, please make a note and do that. And just a big thank you to everyone. I know everyone's working really hard under really hard circumstances. So thank you.
Okay, great. Any concerns people have? Anything else? Senator Lyons.
But so
See you in your fall foliage.
my fall, I didn't get the memo, Senator Ballant. So I haven't sent the list in, but it's a short list.
It went to all chairs. Ginny, I'll make sure that
I'll look for it.
we'll resend. We'll resend.
The list is minimal, very short, a single bill that you already know about. Okay.
Great. Anybody have anything else that they would like to bring up in today? Anything for
Majority Leader?
Yes. Senator Rahm.
Well, I just wanted to celebrate something. The House, and I want to thank Senate Judiciary. The House just unanimously passed H128, the LGBTQ plus panic defense bill. So both of our chambers passing that unanimously and sending it to the governor is the strongest show of support in the country at any point that this bill has been introduced. So I'm really proud of us.
That's a great moment. Thank you for sharing that. That's good news. And good work on everybody's part on that. Anything else? Okay, then I think we have an extra minute or two, which we all appreciate in Zoom land. So we can go and enjoy whatever warming days, and we shall see you in committee.